We see public accusations of people hunting illegally or doing something illegally and trying to call somebody out online, and whoever's tree stand this is in such and such woods, you're 60 yards from mine, please move it. And yeah, it's legal. If it's fair game in public woods, no, there's no law saying you can't put a tree stand up 30 yards behind somebody else, but it's common courtesy. As Boston Bowhunter, we're trying to promote good sportsmanship in the hunting community. We need to kind of advocate for ourselves and each other instead of being in competition with each other. Unfortunately, suburbia in tight hunting grounds leads for a lot of negative interactions. And that's something I think as a society we need to work on, and as a hunting society.
Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 256. Justin Coots and Jacob Bennett, Boston Bowhunter. Support for the Big Buck Registry and the Deer Hunt Podcast comes from Hunter's Blend Coffee, defending hunting one cup at a time. Finally, there's a coffee that helps rather than hurts your freedom to hunt. Polar Works Coolers and the Chill Zone, specializing in the most durable, reliable thermal cups and coolers. Keep your drinks hot or cold in any element. Covert Scouting Cameras, remote cameras for hunting, wildlife, and security. Black Ash Outdoor Products, reduce your risk of tree stand suspension trauma with a Tree Stand Wingman, the Tree Stand Emergency Descender System. Morris's Sporting Goods, a full line of sporting goods without the sales tax. And Big Buck merch. You can get cool, high-quality Big Buck t-shirts, long-sleeve t-shirts, and hoodies. And show support for this podcast by visiting www.bigbuckregistry.com/MERCH. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is John Eberhart. I've been hunting out of a saddle since 1981. I'm about to listen to my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry, Deer Hunting Podcast.
I'm Lee McCoskey.
And I'm Tiffany McCoskey, and you're listening to our favorite hunting podcast on iTunes.
The Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast. This is Milo Hansen, and you're listening to the Big Buck Registry, the Big Buck Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow predators. My name is Jay, and thank you for tuning in to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. For Dusty Phillips and Jim Keller and the entire staff here at the Big Buck Registry, welcome to this week's show. There are a couple things I'd like you to do for us if you could. If you would, please check us out on iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review. With your help, we're going to try and push this show up the iTunes charts. I know we have a lot of listeners out there, and I need you to take some action. I need you to leave a review and subscribe to the show. If you do subscribe, that'll give you access and notification each and every week that a new show is released. You can also access this show in its entirety on YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and as an Amazon Alexa skill. Go to Alexa and say, Alexa, enable Big Buck Registry. It's all right there for you to access on demand at your fingertips. Regarding the harness program, we have an ample supply of harnesses to give away from our volunteer donors. If you're in need of a full-body harness, please send an email to j@bigbuckregistry.com. As Longfellow wrote in his infamous poem, Paul Revere's Ride, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, describing the Redcoat's travel plans from Boston to Concord, we can almost re-envision this today as a description of hunting and fishing in the modern world. 1 whitetail by land, 2 stripers by sea. Now it's the hunt, and perhaps a new fight for freedom that is conducted in the suburbs of Boston, where the American Revolution began. According to Justin Coots and Jacob Bennett, members of a fairly new band of bowhunting patriots called Boston Bowhunter, it's darn good hunting in and around Boston. We discuss how Justin, a fairly new hunter, and Jacob, a seasoned deer hunter, planned their hunts in and around the suburbs of Boston, Massachusetts, and why they founded the Boston Bowhunter Group. We'll get to our interview with Jacob and Justin in just one moment, but before we do, let's hear from our friends at Polar Works Coolers and Jim Keller with the Deer News. I always wanted one of those high-end coolers because of the quality that I had heard of, but I couldn't justify the price. Then I found Polar Works. Finally, I found a company that understands quality and affordability. The Polar Works lineup is extensive and is filled with Polar cups, Polar tubs, and Polar soft coolers. So check out polarworks.com when you're considering your next high-quality cooler without breaking the bank. That's www.polarwerkz.com.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week: dog brings home rare two-headed deer in North Dakota. This story is from the Care Channel 11 website and was reported by Marissa DiCandido. A dog in rural Mandan, North Dakota, recently brought home an unexpected find, a two-headed whitetail deer fetus. Back in April, a whitetail doe was hit and killed by a vehicle on North Dakota Highway 1806, the North Dakota Game and Fish Department posted on its Facebook page on July 5th. The dog apparently found the unborn fawn nearby and decided to bring it back home. The dog's owner then turned over the fetus to the game and fish biologist. This is only the fourth documented two-headed whitetail deer reported since 1761, according to Game and Fish. Deer, seemingly unafraid of humans, are attacking dogs. One dead. This story is from the fox6news.com website. If you take a stroll down a particular golf cart path in southeast Peachtree City, Georgia, you're likely to see deer that won't run away from you. Carolyn Taylor shot cell phone video of a deer that seemed unafraid of her while she walked the path with her dog. Her mother, Susie Luxko, described what happened moments after she stopped recording. All of a sudden, the deer started chasing them. My daughter took off running really fast, and the deer just trampled on her little basset hound, said Luxko. It was a close call for Taylor's dog, but things turned out much worse for a beagle named Scratch, whose owner, Hunter Wood, said his dog was in the confines of her backyard when a doe jumped the fence and attacked. She was immediately onto the dog. She stomped it and cut its head open, said Wood. The dog was injured so badly she had to be euthanized. Several videos have been posted to YouTube from other parts of the country in years past showing mother deer going after dog in similar ways. Christy Daniels has done a survey of vets in the Peachtree City area and discovered there have been at least a dozen similar attacks this summer alone. Meanwhile, Wood said he thinks humans are to blame for creating an unnatural situation. Wood said he believes the deer is mistaking dogs for coyotes, their natural predator, and the only reason we don't see more dogs attacked like this is because deer usually don't want to be very close to a dog's human owners. In this specific neighborhood, the deer have been trained out of their fear. Wood says he isn't ruling out that maybe his dog was killed as revenge for the well over 100 deer he's taken through his hunting career. Wisconsin reports first ever Rocky Mountain spotted fever death. This story is from the foxnews.com website and was reported by Carolyn Judelson. Health officials in Wisconsin are urging residents to take precautions after the state reported its first ever death linked to Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Officials did not name the victim, but described her as a woman in her late 50s who was bit by a tick while camping in early May. The woman was reportedly diagnosed with a tick-borne illness in mid-June and died shortly after. Rocky Mountain spotted fever is most commonly transmitted by dog ticks, which live in more open areas like abandoned fields or prairies. It most commonly strikes in the central and southeast regions of the U.S. Most tick-borne diseases in Wisconsin are transmitted by black-legged ticks, also called deer ticks, which live in wooded, brushy areas. Symptoms of Rocky Mountain spotted fever include fever, rash, nausea, headache, and stomach pain, and if untreated can worsen and possibly lead to death. The Department of Health also offered tips to stay safe, such as using insect repellent, staying on trails, and avoiding walking through vegetation, wearing long sleeves and long pants, and taking a shower immediately after time outdoors. Gang of rhino poachers mauled to death by pride of lions after breaking into game reserve. This story is from the foxnews.com website and was reported by Chris Irvine. At least 3 suspected rhino poachers have been killed by a pride of lions after they broke into a game reserve in South Africa. Rangers discovered the human remains around 4:30 p.m. local time on July 3rd in the immediate vicinity of the lions' territory at the Sibuya Game Reserve in Kenton-on-Sea in the Eastern Cape, more than 24 hours after an anti-poaching dog alerted her handler that something was amiss. The ranger, however, did not examine the disturbance because it was not unusual to hear the lions at night. When members of the anti-poaching unit investigated, they recovered human remains, a high-powered rifle with a silencer, wire cutters, an axe, and 3 pairs of shoes. Nick Fox, the park's owner, said the lions were shot with tranquilizer darts at first light so police forensics teams and the anti-poaching unit could comb the area for clues, and admitted it was not clear how many poachers may have been killed. The only body part we found was one skull and one bit of a pelvis. Everything else was completely gone, he told Newsweek. There is so little left that they don't know exactly how many people were killed. We suspect 3 because we found the 3 sets of shoes and 3 sets of gloves. He added, they came heavily armed with hunting rifles and axes, which we have recovered, and enough food to last them for several days, so we suspect they were after all of our rhinos here. But the lions are our watchers and guardians, and they picked the wrong pride and became a meal. Police spokeswoman Captain Malie Govender said, we don't know the identities, but firearms have been taken by the police and will be sent to the ballistics laboratory to see if they have been used in poaching before. In 2016, the reserve saw 3 of its rhinos shot dead by poachers who broke into the reserve to cut off their horns. All books with the reserve include an option rhino levy where the proceeds are donated to a fund fighting poaching. 9 rhinos have been killed by poachers in Eastern Cape province this year, according to South Africa's Times. The reserve is one of the most popular game reserves in the Eastern Cape and is home to Africa's Big 5, elephants, buffaloes, and leopards, as well as rhinos and lions. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. Special thanks to Daniel Applebaum for leads on some of the stories this week. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Well, thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. Without further ado, here's Justin Coots and Jacob Bennett from Boston Bowhunter. Justin and Jake, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friends?
Doing good today, man. How about you?
Are you guys thinking deer hunting at this time of year?
I'm starting to.
No. Well, thinking about it, I've got elk coming up the end of August.
Okay.
So I'm thinking bugles and water holes, but in the back of my mind, yeah, deer on deck.
Okay. So you guys have this group online called Boston Bowhunter, and it's gotten some traction. It's gotten some followers. Before we get into that, can you let's go a little bit behind the scenes here? Who are you guys? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into hunting in itself?
Justin, you go first.
Sure. So I'm originally from Franklin, Mass. Pretty much born and raised, graduated from there. Grew up, fishing, doing a lot of outdoor stuff with my family. I didn't get into hunting until later on in life, probably when I hit about 22, 23. So back in, I'm going to say 2011, I really started to pique an interest in it. And from there, I just started to, try to reach out and figure out what I had to do to get involved and I guess to, try and kill my first deer.
Gotcha. Very cool. How about you, Jake?
I grew up in upstate New York, not city New York. I was born in the Adirondacks in the big hills. And I think when I was about 1.5, 2 years old, my parents moved to Cooperstown, New York, which is still upstate. Grew up into a family of hunters, really. My uncles, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my father, been actively hunting and spending time in I saw my first deer get shot when I was 6 years old, laying across a Beaver Fall poplar on Thanksgiving with my dad. And, back then it was smooth bore pumps and red black plaid jackets. About, I'd say 13, 14 years ago, I moved to Boston, actually, with my wife. She's from outside the area, and I've been living here ever since.
Gotcha. Very nice. So, Justin, you are a native of Massachusetts. So you grew up there. And did you have any mentors or hunting inspirations?
I wouldn't say growing up I had those. I do have a couple people in my family that hunted. My dad wasn't a hunter. He was a fisherman, and
sure.
We got a bunch of fishermen in my family. My uncle was a bow hunter. He lived up in New Hampshire for a while, and then he came down south and moved to West Bridgewater, Mass. And I know he continued some of what he did down there, and now he owns a tackle shop down in the Cape. But as for mentors and inspiration, I really didn't have a whole lot of inspiration. I didn't know much about it when I first got involved in it, and I had a few friends growing up, and they're, just like Jake, grew up doing it with their fathers and, their whole family, and I try to pick their brains and spend time with them to figure out what I could do to be able to get out into the woods and, harvest a deer. As for mentors, I have my whole situation with hunting was very, it wasn't like Jake's. I didn't have people to talk to, so when I first started out, I was pretty much skimming through Field and Stream magazines and apply those methods to, to learn hunting, to get out and be able to successfully harvest a deer. As you know, or may not know, some of the tactics that are in most of those magazines, in my opinion, apply to most of the Midwest, and not so much like the urban and suburban hunting, areas we have around here. So it wasn't necessarily great for me. I didn't always have a CRP field to sit on the edge of, and wait for sit through the cornfields. So I had to figure out a way to learn more and to find ways and tactics and techniques to be able to apply that to one of the precipices on why I started Boston Bowhunter, was basically to get more information and to just learn,
Makes sense. Where was your curiosity coming from in the beginning? You said that you were 22 when you first started getting into this.
I had been a fisherman my whole life, and I'm actually a network engineer by trade. So I spend a lot of time indoors at a computer around technology, and I've been over the years getting, I guess, overwhelmed by the stress that technology induces on people. And I was looking for more ways to be able to get outdoors and try to connect more on the spiritual side to Mother Nature. And I had been, fishing is always something you can do, and I didn't do much ice fishing, but I needed something to do in the winter during all those lulls. And I had always, skimmed across Facebook posts from my friends who were hunters during that time. And I said, man, it would be really cool to be able to, get involved and do something like that, and to be able to, I didn't mind putting in the hard work. Little did I know how much work actually went into, bow hunting in general.
Jake, you came from New York. You were in the Adirondacks growing up, learning about how all the hunting aspects. I mean, you're definitely into the outdoors. The Adirondacks is no joke. It's pretty hardcore hunting areas. Where did your curiosity come from, and was there anybody in particular that you really honed in on to teach you the outdoors?
Like most kids, I wanted to be like my father and my grandfather. I wanted to be one of the guys that could, legally able to, I would go and do drives and sit with them every day I could. And I learned a lot. I mean, like most guys, I really looked up to my father. And my father come from a hunting family out of, like Utica, New York, where a lot of the guys back then they gun hunted. And they gun hunted in groups, and it was a day. They'd bring food, and they'd cook out, and then they'd do a few drives, and somebody would unload their gun at a running half-horn spike horn at 300 yards, and today was a good day, So my father and I both kind of cut our teeth at the same time. When I became 12 and legally was able to bow hunt in New York, we kind of both got into it and taught. And at that time, when I was able to legally turkey hunt, actually I think I was 13 for bow hunting at the age of 12, my father and I both learned the ropes of turkey hunting. So we kind of went to school at the same time for that aspect. But we both, I remember really looking up to Charles Alsheimer and reading a lot of his writings.
Right.
And the Benoits, the big woods bucks of the Benoits, and how they chased those giant Maine bucks and Vermont bucks. I remember just love watching their videos and reading their books. So a lot of my influence of hunting came from those, but also from my father. I mean, he was a big deal as far as that goes. And my friends, like my best friend hunted, and I'm it's strange to say to somebody who doesn't hunt, who doesn't get it, but the memories you make in the woods with someone you care about last forever. It's a strange thing to say. It's if you don't hunt, I try to explain to my wife, and it's a hard concept for them to grasp, that having a successful hunt or sharing a memory with somebody you care about in the woods is unlike anything else you'll ever experience. So, every time I go in the woods, I'm trying to go out and make a memory, and it's something I learned from my father.
Yep, gotcha. So, Justin, now that you got into hunting at later in life compared to like some guys get into it when they're just kids, their parents are hunters or whatever, are you able to find that spiritual side of what you were looking for through hunting now?
I would say yes. It was difficult at first when I first started doing it. You go out there, you pick a spot to hunt, didn't do much homework, and sat there, and I'm like, wow. This is kind of boring,
Right.
Just trying to get into it. And it wasn't probably until I was able to get in contact with some of my good hunting buddies and really start to pick up some good tips to them, and, trying to do some, homework and being alert while you're out there. And, it's not just sitting there. Like, it is sitting there, but you're doing, you're actively looking and scanning and trying to, see what's going on in the woods. As you know, you get out there early in the morning, you're waking up in the morning and with the woods, and you're seeing everything that's going on. You see the whole woods come alive. It's a pretty, I guess, spiritual thing if you think of it like that. I didn't really have things click for me until I started Boston Bowhunter. It wasn't ever planned. It was more of, I was scanning groups on Facebook and trying to find good information. And the problem with that is, hunters can be very secretive, and some, not all, and they can be very, I guess you could say, rude at sometimes. I would ask a question in, any of these Facebook pages and get chastised for it. And they'd say, oh, that's a stupid question. I'm just here trying to learn. We all started at some point, and I was just trying to get as much information as I could, but it was hard to get that when there was a lot of guys just putting me down. So I got to the point where I had kind of had enough, and I said, all right, well, I'm just going to start my own group. And when I did that, I just started adding a couple of guys I've been talking to, and from there, I wanted to make sure I set the stage where if you shouldn't feel bad to ask a question. You should be encouraged to do it. Everyone starts somewhere, and you should feel comfortable to do something like that without being chastised and put down. So that was the tone that I wanted to set early on with starting this group. And I think from there, one of the biggest aspects of our growth was all these newcomers that were joining, whether it be women, children, veterans, or just regular, hunters who've been doing it their whole life. They want to feel comfortable with having, being able to ask questions and to, do certain things without being put down. Right. So obviously what we're doing is, paid off. And it was, I had the vision and the dream, but it was, it takes a lot of people to do stuff like this. I have Jake, who's been, one of my right-hand men. He's really done a lot. He won't talk about it. Jake's a pretty humble dude, but Jake's done a lot. He won't tell you about all the people that he takes out into the woods turkey hunting, getting their first turkeys, and he won't tell you about all the, the advice that he gives online to people. And so I'll do that for him. And we have guys like Ray Isles, who has been, he's like the unofficial, godfather, we call him, of Boston Bowhunter. He's been doing it for over 30 years, and he's he's just a down-to-earth guy, and he's always willing to put people on stands and give good advice. And he's just he just puts people in the right mindset to be able to do something like this, and encourages them. And he's he's another guy who isn't with us today, but I feel like it was needed to be able to bring his name up and let you guys know that Ray is Ray's a stand-up guy, and I'm sure you'll be able to talk with him in the future about this stuff.
Gotcha. Very good. So do you? I mean, you're both living in and around Boston now, right?
Yes.
And is that kind of where the Boston name came from? Because you live there, and does that lead into hunting in? Because
anywhere east of New York
is Boston.
Is Red Sox fans basically.
That's
Otherwise,
right.
you get flogged. I grew up in New York, but we had satellite. Like we're talking. Remember, like those big dish TVs?
Yeah.
We had this giant dish TV that you'd have to use this arrow to move to find a satellite.
Looks like a flying saucer. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only sports channel we got growing up for me was Nesson. And so I grew up being a giant fan of like Mo Vaughn and Mike Greenwell, like Carlton Fisk, like all those guys. So I've been a Boston fan, never been a Yankees fan. I've always been a Mets and Red Sox fan.
God.
And my boys back in New York will probably smack the crap out of me next time I see them for saying that. It's basically, let's be honest, it's title town. Boston is the hub of the Northeast, kind of. Everybody knows. Everybody's got a familiar accent around here. I mean, maybe I covered it. Justin could probably answer that question a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, Boston is pretty Boston and New York. They're both meccas for sports. So it's the name. I don't know. I just literally came up with it within like 30 seconds. It was a catchy name, and it just kind of took. And I said, all right, I'll just try this out. And
it sounds a little bit better than Worcester Bowhunter.
Yeah, I think Boston encompasses, like you said, the whole sports kind of theme, and it's something that people who are from the New England area can relate to because that's the title of a lot of our sports teams.
Gotcha. Do you end up hunting in suburban settings? I mean, when I think of Boston Bowhunter, I think, oh, wow, these guys are hunting like on city limits. Is that the case, or is it more Massachusetts based?
Well, To be honest, it's strange. Each town in Massachusetts has their own separate bylaws of what you can hunt, what you can hunt with, and if you can even hunt. Yeah, there's a lot of suburban hunting going on, and it's a different aspect. I learned how to hunt suburban bucks from a guy who lived here his whole life and had it pretty much figured out and killed giants. But as an example, it's strange. I think, I'm not. I've been blessed to have some pretty good success in the last decade or so. But what you learn and how suburban animals act, you can totally apply and relate to big woods bucks. And that's been the case for me ever since I've learned how to try and target suburban bucks and learn their movement patterns and their behaviors. I've applied it when I go back to New York, and I've had twice the success. Turkey hunting in New York this year is not easy. The last few years is not easy. And I've got 1,000 acres I can hunt, and I shot, the first day I was back in New York, I shot a tom 200 yards from my neighbor's door. Right? I have permission to do so.
Right.
But, it's strange how, I leave suburbia to go hunt these big woods turkeys, and I shoot a longbeard 200 yards from my neighbor's step.
Right.
So it's all applicable. But yeah, a lot of the hunting around here is suburban, and it leads to some problems. There needs to be a little bit more respect and understanding and mutual camaraderie around hunters if you're hunting a suburban area, because you only have a certain amount of acreage to hunt for a handful of people.
And that's kind of what I envision a lot of the time, being in New Hampshire, being able to roam wherever I want, short of a posted sign, being able to carry a firearm wherever I want. I think of Boston, I think of Massachusetts, I think about the gun laws in Massachusetts. I think about it being akin to New Jersey in a lot of ways, where there's this very tight gun control, so you almost have to turn to a bow to hunt anything there. And then I think about just the general attitude that you would find in Massachusetts about hunting and being around a liberal core for the most part, where you just, and these are stereotypes in general, but that you think, well, everybody must be everybody must hate guns, and that you can't hunt down there at all, and that there's no access. That's I think the overall stigma that you get. I know that's not the case because you guys are breaking the mold here. But what's that feeling down there, being an insider in Massachusetts, trying to hunt in Massachusetts? You guys are in the thick of it. What's it like?
I think that there is a lot of support for it, but I think with all the politics that's on social media these days, a lot of people are actually afraid to come out and talk about it because of the fear of getting, put down about it and say, you're wrong about this and that. So a lot of people just keep quiet about it and, read up on it in the background. I think it's definitely growing, but it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. But, with what we're doing with Boston Bowhunter, we have, I guess, somewhat broken the mold, but, it's something that you got to work at every single day.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight, but as long as we keep doing things and putting the women first, the children first, and the veterans first, we're eventually going to make some waves and people are going to notice. And hopefully those are the right people to, help us and to continue with the vision of making it grow.
Do you end up doing any of the, I guess there's some parks down and around you that open up hunting to population control, I guess. When you explain that to some, I don't know, maybe you do just keep it quiet, like you said. You just kind of keep this hobby, the something that you love to do. Do you just kind of not even bring it up at a cocktail party, or how does that go?
Every time I ever go to any social type of meeting, somehow it always just happens to pop up that I'm a hunter, whether it be for my own device, which my wife absolutely loves, or the topic of Lyme disease, or hey, I saw a coyote, or oh, I saw a fawn. Something like it always happens to come up. And I met with both, and you just, the thing is coming from, country town and moving here, I try to be as respectful as I can and understand everybody's point of view. People who are anti-hunting, that's probably because they didn't grow up with it, and they have a reason for being anti-hunting. I just don't ram it down their face. Simple facts and statements and understanding of their beliefs usually go a long way. I find people who are usually anti-hunting aren't so much, or are not so negative to me when they find out that that's how I feed my family red meat for 12 months.
Right.
The fact that you're an anti-hunter until you get Lyme disease. or your Mercedes gets smacked by a big buck. You know, it's there. Lack of information leads to fear. The non-hunting community, but there are quite a few people. Like I work at a hospital, and there's a couple people who hunt there, but the doctors absolutely love when I give them venison.
Right.
And you know, and they've got family members who own woods and want me to go hunt and shoot deer and bring it back for them so they can have venison. You know, when you go to Wegmans and it's $36 a pound for venison. Justin, there's a button on the side of your phone that makes it vibrate. Feel free to use that at any time, bro.
All right. Done. All done.
Well done. Well done.
So it sounds like there are big rewards and some challenges that you have to overcome trying to hunt. And we've done suburban shows in other parts of the country. We've never come to the Northeast to do a suburban type show until I became aware of your group. I mean, that's when it dawned on me, hey, you know, there are hunters in and around Massachusetts, specifically, you know, east of Worcester, and that there are people that are hunting suburban areas in and around Boston, and I think that's fantastic. I love that you've opened that up, and that you're pushing that boundary and starting to get into people's general conversation. I think that's only good for us as hunters and good for all of Massachusetts, kind of opening up a more of a tolerance of it, where I always had this vision of all hunting in Massachusetts was done west of Worcester for the most part, but you're breaking ground here, and I think that's really, really good. Right.
Well, and to be honest with you, it's any kind of suburbia. I mean, there are giant bucks being killed in the suburbs of Worcester, Salem. You know, so any big city. In the difference in Massachusetts, that is different than most states, in the fact that almost every single town in Massachusetts has 100 or hundreds of acres that are closed to hunting or for hiking. Where that's, you know, how when people have giant, let's say, QDMA parcel to hunt, a lease, they always, you know, people who are doing it properly set aside a number of acres that is an unpressured area. It's their respite. Well, whether they know it or not, Massachusetts has set that up in almost every single town in the state. And so, I mean, that's beneficial as well. But there, you know, people are starting to learn that it is available. I mean, but then again, there's giant bucks being killed in southern New Hampshire right now. I mean,
sure.
Monsters.
Right.
Monsters. It's all, if you want, they're there. If you want to put the work in either big woods or suburbia, they're there.
Right.
Man, I'm still trying to find them. It's tough, man. It's tough out here for an amateur, but it is what it is. You know, I keep learning every year, and I have some of the best resources in probably New England to spool from, whether it's Jake Bennett, John Petrick, Ray Isles, Jim Lavasser. There's so many good guys in this group that have been able to help me in regards to hunting. And I think one of the best things too about the group is it's not just hunting. You know, I know we had the name Boston Bowhunter, but it's everything for outdoorsmen. You know, it's hunting, it's hiking, it's fishing, it's camping, it's everything that encompasses what the outdoors really is. So it really helps us in regards to giving more people a reason to join and want to be a part of it, knowing that, you know, you don't have to be a hunter to be in it. You know, if you're really into fishing, then great. Then this is going to be a perfect place for you to be able to, you know, get advice, give advice, to find out new spots. And it's great. You know, people are sharing some of their secret spots now. You know, they don't go too far into it, but they're helping people out and getting people on big fish and getting on big game. It's great. It's all about community. If we can keep this ball rolling, then, you know, maybe we can, make this a legacy for us to leave someday for our children.
Nice.
And I mean, and make no mistake. There is a lot of adversity to hunting suburbia in the Boston area, New England, and unfortunately, it's we're our own worst enemy. I mean, hunters hate each other. We treat each other like crap, and that's something that we're trying to dispel. Boston Bowhunter, and don't get me wrong, Boston Bowhunter has its share of haters. There are people who don't like asking, posting pictures of giant bucks that they've got trail camera photos of. There's a group of people who don't really like the social media aspect of it. And social media can be positive evil in the hunting community, but I think Boston Bowhunter is going about the right way and trying to bring together people with common interests and common beliefs and goals, and give us a hangout.
Yep. Makes
place
sense.
where there's no such thing as a dumb question. We might make fun of you for it a little bit, but it's all in good fun. I mean,
Oh man, I get made fun of every day.
Balls busted on a daily basis. So he's a good
I really do. I'm like a target. I'm public enemy number one in that group.
Well, if you weren't so vocal about your obsession with chocolate crullers, then it wouldn't be so bad.
Well, it's interesting, Justin, is that you had the audacity to put yourself out there. I mean, you've kind of exposed yourself to a pretty hard group, right? I mean, this is hunters in general, although they help each other. You do go through what I think is an induction ceremony of sorts, and that you will be part of the group, but you are going to be subject to some
Absolutely.
baptism, right?
I think that's one of the best things about. There's a lot of razzing that goes on, but it's all friendly. I've met a ton of these guys in person now. I spent time with them, doing outdoors and type things, and it's all just in good fun, and I understand that. I don't take anything personally, and I personally, I enjoy it. If I can give these guys a good laugh for a couple minutes, I don't mind if it's at my expense. I don't. It keeps the group alive, and especially during the off season, we try to keep things going with whether it's turkey hunting, spring fishing down at the canal on the Cape. And then, leading up to that, we have, hunting. Then after hunting, there's shed hunting. But, there's always going to be lulls and everything, too. So it's good to be able to keep these, keep the group and the momentum going. And the more people we have in the group and, posting, just stuff, the better it is, the more fun it is for everybody.
Right. So let's get into some hunting strategies and techniques. I mean, how do you hunt? I mean, and I know you're not just hunting Boston. You're hunting in areas in Eastern Mass for the most part, and maybe you travel beyond that. I know, Jake, you said you go to New York, but purely hunting in Massachusetts, how do you start? Like, where are you hunting? What type of terrain, and what techniques are you using that might be more or less specific or unique to that part of the country?
Well, nothing really changes. In my opinion, and I'm not a professional by any means, the aspect of deer knowledge does not change. You still need to be able to interpret deer sign to be successful. People who ask me certain questions, I think it's important to set goals for yourself and set attainable goals for yourself, whether you're a new hunter or not. And I believe it was Charles Alsheimer who had the ongoing growth of a deer hunter. I think it was him that was basically, when you first start hunting, you just want to shoot a deer. And then you want to shoot a buck, and then you want to shoot as many deer as possible. Then you want to shoot a big buck, and then you want to start getting people to teaching people how to shoot deer. You know what I mean? The same process doesn't change whether you're a big woods deer hunter, small woods deer hunter. Interpret deer sign, reading body language of deer. That doesn't change. That's all the same. The best teacher for that is going out and doing it and watching it yourself. So to get started myself, I utilize trail cameras. I look a lot at deer track because a lot of the areas around here have, sandy-based soil. So you can get a good deer print off of that. You can usually, it's something I learned from the Benoits when reading their books. Learning the food sources, the preferred food sources, bedding areas, funnels. And the one thing that people can use suburban landscape for is pinch points, funnel areas. You can use these things to your advantage. The big hassle with hunting suburbia is that sometimes you have like 2 acres you can hunt, and after that, sorry, there's nothing you can do. There's no hunting outside of there, but you can use the lay of the land to your advantage. Deer don't fly. They can't disappear. They're there somewhere. Right. You just got to put the ground under your feet, find them, and be there when they're out in the daylight. I'm not a huge advocate for nocturnal movement. I don't think it really exists. I think they just move less, or they tighten up their core area, or they move in a different area.
Justin, what's your experience? I mean, as far as knocking on doors, getting permission, are you just traveling with some of the guys from Boston Bowhunter to make it happen, or are you getting your own spots?
For the most part, I'm getting my own spots. I've kind of fallen into a tradition. Avery, stop. I've kind of fallen into a tradition of going out to deer camp every year out west in Peru, Mass. It's pretty much like on the New York state line. And my friend's father, he's been hunting for his whole life, so they got like probably 20 or 30, 12 to 15 foot wooden stands that we hang out in, and they have a nice cabin that they built themselves up there, and they go black bear hunting out there, and there's certainly deer and bobcat and moose out there, so there's plenty of wildlife to look at. As for knocking on doors, I've done it a few times. I've been successful, and then I've been unsuccessful more than not. So it's tough. I actually just moved to a new spot. I'm down over in Cumberland, Rhode Island, which is right over the Mass state line. And Jake's already been on me, telling me to knock on some doors and, you know, get some places to get some access to. So I got to start, now that I'm settled into the new place, I got to start working on that. And we got a little bit of time, but it's not easy. You know, a lot of people are still turned off by the idea of you coming onto their property and killing an animal. Let's put it as that. So it's something you have to massage the way you talk to them and make, you know, present it as a, you know, a positive thing that you're doing for them. Like whether it's going to a farmer's place that has a bunch of, you know, corn or an apple farm and saying, look, I'm going to help get rid of the pests that's eating your crops. That helps put food on your family's table, for example.
Right.
So it's it's kind of I guess it's a hit or miss, but you're not going to know unless you get out there and try. So I definitely got my work cut out for me this year.
Gotcha. I mean, moving to a new spot, I mean, that has its own challenges, right? And that's not easy to do. But I know that area that you're in. I mean, it seems like any of that south of Boston, there's some nice land out there, right?
Oh, there's definitely a lot of nice land. And there's still plenty of towns down here like Franklin, Bellingham, Rentham area, Foxborough, that, you know, allow you to, you know, hunt. There's not really any, I know that you can do muzzleloader, and then some towns you can't do shotgun, but pretty much you're allowed to discharge an arrow and, you know, go bow hunting without having any issues. You know, some towns that are surrounding it, like Norfolk, I believe, and like Norwood, you're going to need, you know, like written permission to even think about doing anything like that.
Right.
They're definitely out there. I mean, you can go deep in the woods, you're going to find them. Then you can go probably 50 to 100 yards off a trail, if that. And they're around there. We're in the suburbs, and they're pretty comfortable with, you know, with people. So it's
that's the biggest misnomer, is that people are like, well, you're shooting suburban deer. No, that's not it at all. Yes, people walking in certain ways and people hiking walk a certain way. For some reason, you step in the woods with camel or a backpack on. No, they're not. It's a different mentality, but they're by far different from pet deer. That's that. I mean, yeah. To that point, Justin, you are correct that they're used to hikers and whatnot. But as soon as you try to hunt them, good luck. And when you're hunting in a suburban area, you say you bump them, you know, out of the court, you won't see them for weeks. I mean, the thing is, you're hunting a postage stamp, and there's 100 acres across the road. Well, guess where they're going to go to? You know, so it has its challenges. Have you ever stepped foot in the Massachusetts woods, Jay?
Not to hunt. I grew up on the border and always hunted the line, you know, and just always had my license. Frequently the drop tine would jump over the line, and I wouldn't go get my license, and you hear about some guy in Mass getting the drop tine. So this is Western Mass for the most part. I've never actually hunted down in that area.
There's this lovely little plant that grows out here in eastern Massachusetts, and probably western central Massachusetts, called the Bull Briar. And anybody who's listening to this podcast who lives in southeast Massachusetts, or even, I don't know, eastern Massachusetts, knows about a lovely little plant called the Bull Briar. It's basically, imagine a green grapevine that grows from the ground up with about half-inch thorns on it that love to tear your ass up.
Yeah.
They those make great sanctuaries. I when I first moved here, I'm like, oh man, that's like a great piece of woods. I'm gonna go walk in there with my kid and just scout it out real quick. You'll go through a pair of pants, and you'll have your kids on your shoulder, and you'll be the most miserable person in the world in about 15 minutes.
Torn to shreds.
Absolutely demolished, yeah.
Interesting.
But when they bud out to green leaves, the deer like to eat them.
Really? I didn't know that. There we go. Snapple fact of the day. Now I know something.
Where do you want to go with Boston Bowhunter at this point? What's the goal?
I think
Justin wants to take it to be part of Donald Trump's Space Force and turn that into an intergalactic defense company.
Yep, first New England, next the world.
Defending the world with bow and arrows.
That's right.
First things first, with the vision, we want to just keep helping people. You know, we just had an event that, you know, was we had a lot of people come. I think we had just around 250. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jake. And you know, it went off without a hitch. It was a lot of work, and we have a lot of good people standing behind it that help volunteer. And you know, we decided this year with the money that we made for it, that we're going to do the best we can to send 2 kids to junior conservation camp for 2 weeks.
Neat.
All expenses paid. And we're also going to do the best we can to donate money to New England Adventures, which is a veterans-owned and operated company that helps veterans with PTSD get assimilated back into the outdoors, whether it's going on fishing trips, hunting trips, hiking and camping, stuff like that. So the goal is to continue to help people. That's what we want overall. Now, if I can find a way to somehow turn this into a nonprofit or a business I can work full time, that would be great in the future. Right now, we're still in the growing stage, and we've been doing this for just about 2.5 to 3 years. So I think we're doing good, and we're making some good headway. But there's always plenty of work to do, and hopefully we'll be able to reach that and leave our legacy here doing that someday.
Gotcha. Well, let's take a little coffee break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Justin and Jake from Boston Bowhunter.
Hello, I'm Grant Woods, and as a wildlife biologist, I've learned through the decades that big antlers start in the dirt. It's all about quality soil. Years ago, when research clearly showed that tilling, disking, or disturbing the soil decreased the quality of soil, I changed to a no-till system. As the research progressed and more people were focused on soil health, I changed to using cover crops and keeping a living root in the soil as many days throughout the year as possible. Now our food plot systems actually improve the soil instead of degrade it, and we're growing larger and healthier deer. In a similar way, I've learned that several coffee importers don't hold the same value for natural resources that I do. They actually do things that harm the environment instead of help the environment and the people that work those coffee plantations. It's even more discouraging that several coffee importers actually support lobbyists that are against hunting and our hunting traditions. Last winter, I met Ken, Paul, and Mike, 3 brother-in-laws that love coffee and hunting. Due to their love of coffee and, quite candidly, the people that grow and process the coffee, they work to bring us Hunter's Blend coffee. Paul, Ken, and Mike buy directly from the coffee producers. This allows them to pay the producers at least twice the normal rate and be able to donate to hunting organizations. I love it when I have an opportunity to purchase from folks that want to protect our natural resources and the people working the land and protect hunting and the hunting heritage. I encourage you to go to huntersblendcoffee.com and order some today and ask your local sporting goods retailer to stock their coffee. It's more important now than ever for hunters to stick together and support conservation of our natural resources.
And now back to our conversation with Justin, Coots, and Jacob Bennett from Boston Bowhunter. So the size of the plots of land that you're hunting, Jake, it sounds like you're hunting anything from an acre or 2 to whatever publicly is allowed, or maybe even some private plots that might even be bigger than that. Can you walk us through some of the variety of places you have permission to hunt?
Yes. I hunt both public and private land, and in Massachusetts, in certain towns, private unposted land is free game. It's fair game. You just have to do your due diligence and read up on the town bylaws of the town that you plan on hunting. I've got some private pieces that are, 200 acres, 250 acres, and I've got other private pieces that are postage stamp, 2 acres.
Still waiting for my invite.
Yeah, well, listen, nothing's free. Come out and put the time in. This buck we were talking about earlier right here, I was hunting him for 4 years, and in a rather large piece of woods. And there's other people in there. There's not a single piece of woods that I hunt that somebody else doesn't hunt. So was chasing him for 4 years on a large piece, and he would disappear for weeks at a time, and blah, 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 blah. And about 3 years ago, I decided to just kind of do a satellite scatter of cameras, just in the little woodlots, just outskirting this larger piece of woods, and through neighborhoods and whatnot. And what I learned is that the deer are not afraid of houses or roads. I mean, we all know that they get hit by cars. I found him about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from where I'd been hunting him the 3 previous years, and killed him in a 2.5 acre piece of woods where he was going to get sanctuary from the other hunters.
Gotcha. So, and this was one of my questions that it kind of popped in my head, is that yes, there may be less hunters. Yes, you're hunting with a bow, but the acreage that you have to hunt, it seems like they're small, so the pressure must still be decent unless it's a private piece, right? I mean, you're hunting.
Even so, even on a private piece, here's the thing. There's always competition. If you think I got this piece locked to myself, and I've heard people be like, oh man, I've got this great private piece. There's other people who hunt it. There are. It's unfortunately, it's hard to find sanctuaries around here, but yeah, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of competition for hunting ground and for deer out here. Yeah, there may be less hunters, but there definitely is a lot less huntable woods. And unfortunately, I think it leads to a lot of nasty interactions between hunters. And we see it on Boston Bowhunter all the time.
Yeah.
We see public accusations of people hunting illegally or doing something illegally and trying to call somebody out online, and whoever's tree stand this is in such and such woods, you're 60 yards from mine, please move it. And yeah, it's legal. If it's fair game in public woods, no, there's no law saying you can't put a tree stand up 30 yards behind somebody else. Yep. But it's common courtesy. And I think one thing that I have talked to the admins about going forward is that as Boston Bowhunter, we're trying to promote good sportsmanship in the hunting community. We need to kind of advocate for ourselves and each other instead of being in competition with each other. Unfortunately, suburbia in tight hunting grounds leads for a lot of negative interactions. And that's something I think as a society we need to work on, and as a hunting society.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure you guys feel it on Boston Bowhunter quite a bit. I don't think that's necessarily unique to Boston Bowhunter. It seems like that's just, Facebook, social media. Seems to be a lot of there's not a lot of unity is what we're noticing amongst hunters for a lot of different reasons. Everybody seems to have a different opinion on how it should be done. And
yeah, I mean, there's, we have to take the good with the bad here. I mean, we have a group of, I think, about 4,300 people. And, there's always going to be a couple of guys that make this kind of difficult and have to put in their 2 cents that always just seems to be negative. But for the most part, I think we
weed those out kind of quickly.
Yeah, we either get rid of them after a while if they don't bring anything positive to the group, or we just have to deal with it sometimes. If they're bringing good points to the table, that's one thing. But if it's a negative, if they're just bringing negativity to everything, that's not the kind of message that we want to send, especially to the newcomers. So it's something where if you gotta go, you gotta go. It's one of those things where we do what we have to do.
Right.
Growing up in New York, like somebody would shoot a big buck. This kid that grew up with me, he shot the biggest buck anybody had seen in that town in like decades. It was like a 140-inch 10-pointer, beautiful buck. It was the first year my zone opened it up to rifle hunting, and we put that buck in the back of our truck, and we drove everywhere. And everywhere we went, we got nothing but high fives and congratulations and have a beer, and just it was a lot of camaraderie and, oh, yeah, you got that up on the hill. Awesome. Good for you. And you never heard anything like, oh, I bet you shot over 200-pound pile of apples, or, oh, he was trespassing, or, oh, he shot the night before. There was never any of that. So, I think, social media and the overall hunting community has come into play with the and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's definitely a down spiraling to the quality of the hunting community and how we treat each other in the last few decades. I'd love to see that change. I don't know if it's a product of social media and competition or the outdoor industry. I mean, I've been in the outdoor industry on various pro staffs and filming for shows and writing for publications for probably going on 10, 12 years now. And I definitely see a change in hunting society and how we treat each other. And it's kind of nauseating.
I'm with you. From the hunting that I knew growing up, where everybody was excited if you got a deer, and there's always a bit of jealousy, but you'd never say anything. You would promote the deer. You'd be excited about the hunter's success, and obviously you're always a bit envious. But there was always like this good camaraderie, like congratulations, just like you described.
Yeah,
I don't see that anymore. I mean, you might, even when you get to the weigh station. There seems to be, hey, nice. On occasion, you get a nice deer, but there's like this almost a bitterness, and I can't figure out exactly where it's all coming from. But man, it's way different than it was when I was growing up.
Way different, and that's something that Boston Bowhunter, we're trying to create, even though it's, in the hunting world in New England, it's small. It's, 4,000 to 5,000 members. But it's something we're trying to fill those member slots with people who share same values and the same respect. And we can post something or somebody can post something and they're genuinely excited about it. There's always going to be those bad apples. There's always going to be those people. And there are members on Boston Bowhunter that don't bring much to the table, that lurk just to look at the trail camera pictures of bucks and find out where the person lives. And then, listen, we hear it a dozen times a year where people on Facebook get a picture of a giant buck on their trail camera. They get excited. They post it on Boston Bowhunter. Next thing you know, somebody's lurking their private account, finds out what town they live in, and then next thing you know, they pop up trail cameras in all this person's woods and this and that. And so it's kind of really unfortunate, but that's what we kind of try to weed out.
Gotcha. All right. Very
good.
See,
I don't have to deal with any of that because I'm not a great hunter. So
I never said I was.
That's funny. Let's get into some of your best and maybe the most memorable deer stories that you guys have. I know we had talked about this a little bit on the when we were forming the outline here. Let's start with you, Justin, if we could. Take us on a hunt. Take us on an adventure. Where are we going to go?
So we're going to go on a hunt with Ray Isles here. This was when I first started the group, and Ray and I had been talking for some time, and he kept saying, if you want to come out, I'll put you on one of my good stands, and we'll see if we can, help you harvest something. And I finally got to get out there. Ray and I met up at like 5 a.m. up in Wickenden, Mass, where he's from, in Winchendon or whatever it's pronounced as. And we went and, he put me on one of his stands, and, it was great. I ended up not actually seeing anything that day, but it was more of the fact that Ray had put me on and, he took the time out of his day to actually do that. And that to me was just as memorable than anything, the fact that he didn't have to do that, and that kind of started the idea of trying to, keep on trying to help other people. So it's kind of evolved into something bigger and better today. As for a more interesting story, out in Peru, Mass, I went out there a couple of years ago with my girlfriend, and we knew that there was black bear in the area, but I had never really seen one around the area yet. So I was helping her out. She was a first timer getting into the woods, and she was climbing up her stand, and she got up there. I was handing her bow, and halfway up the ladder, and she was like, "Hey, there's a bear behind you." I'm like, "Okay, whatever you say, Miranda." And she's like, "No, seriously, there's a bear right behind you." And so I turn around, and I'm like, "Yep, holy shit, there's a bear about 15 yards from me." And I was pretty scared. I didn't have much experience with that, and I shimmied up that ladder pretty damn quick. And I was lucky enough where, I got up the ladder and the bear ended up just taking off. But it was definitely a memorable moment, and she made fun of me to this day for that, but I'm sure she probably would have done the same thing. So it was definitely something I'll never forget.
That's a good one. That's definitely a telltale sign of a new hunter right there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was my first real interaction with with a bear outside of Clark's trading post up in New Hampshire.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
It was something like, whoa, this is here's a wild animal here, and he's not too far away from me. I don't think, looking back now, I know that he probably really had no real interest in me and just wanted to see what was going on, because he ended up just taking right off. But it was I don't know, you see all these movies growing up as a kid, and bears kind of have this stigma where it's like, okay, it's a big scary animal that's known to rip you apart. So
right,
that really was what's going through my
mind. What movies are you watching? I mean,
what's that movie?
Yogi the Bear's a gentle soul.
What's that movie with what was it, with Alec Baldwin and was it Anthony Hopkins, where they're in that plane and it goes down, and they had that grizzly bear chasing them around the mountain for the rest of the movie?
Yes. The good news is there are no such thing as a grizzly bear in Massachusetts. I'm just going to throw that out there.
No, there's not.
Yeah. But that's why I don't go on planes, because I'm afraid of snakes on a plane.
Oh, okay.
Justin, in your defense, if that was Alaska, yeah, I'd be a little scared too. But
the same aspect, Justin. That's why I don't go swimming over my waist in the ocean. I don't like sharks.
I don't either. I'm gonna be honest with you real quick. I don't go anywhere past my knees, especially when I'm in the Cape.
Yeah, that's gross. Makes me nauseous.
No, I don't know. You know, I was very inexperienced. It was my second or third year.
Sure.
And I just immediately thought in my head, there's a bear and I need to get up this tree as quick as I can. And if I have to throw my girlfriend down to feed the bear, I'm going to do what I have to do.
You don't have to be the fastest. You just have to be faster than one behind you, right?
Oh, man. It was her or me. I'll tell you right now, it was not going to be me.
Oh, that's funny. All right, Jake, where are we going to go on your hunt?
It's hard to pick one. To be honest, so my father and I, we bond a lot of times in the outdoors, and I find myself, he's 68 years old now, and about 4 or 5 years ago, he had a really bad accident, almost lost his life. He was cutting firewood, and he had a tree fall on his leg and pin him down and crushed his leg pretty good. He almost lost a leg, but it kind of reprioritized things for me and how I spend time with my father. So every chance we get to hunt together, we do, and we enjoy it. He came out to Massachusetts for the opening week of turkey season. In the first 2 days, he was tagged out.
Wow, nice.
Brett Joy and from New Hampshire, I believe, and we were filming for Eastern Strut, and we had a cameraman come out, and my dad was done in the first 2 days, and those are some memories right there. But to think back, I actually wrote an article about a buck I shot the year after my dad had an accident, and I called the buck. That big 6-point. I called it Bruce Almighty. That's the first big buck I ever killed with my father there and able to help me track it and drag it out. But to be honest with you, one of the best memories I have was this past rifle season, opening day in New York. We had that very, very special half-inch of snow on the ground, maybe quarter-inch of snow, just enough to make it for a nice drag out.
Yep. And
it turned out my best friend from Massachusetts came back to hunt with us on opening day, and we had this wood lot that we had permission to hunt. We've hunted my whole life. The woman who owns it's my mom's best friend, and we just got done telling him, it's opening day, it's the middle of the rut, anything can happen. Just, a deer can pop at it anywhere. People are moving them around. It could be chaos. I remember, 10 years ago riding through here and deer come flying by and sitting there and we're walking and talking out and we're sitting there. My dad's pointing towards the clouds or something, and my buddy goes, "Look, right there, 30 yards to my left, there's this 2.5-year-old buck just walking head down, love drunk, ready for some estrus, and just walking right to us at 30 yards. And I sat there with my father and my best friend and shot the buck. And it was all high fives and hugs. And it was probably the smallest buck I've killed in the last few years. But my heart was pumping. We were excited. It was a 2.5-year-old buck, but it was such a great experience. We sat down, we had a cup of coffee, we talked, we joked about it, we dragged it out. And that's a memory that brings me back to 15, 20 years ago when I was hunting with my uncles and my grandfather and my father and his friends, and we would do drives, and there was this camaraderie and mutual respect and genuine happiness for somebody else's success, and basically the excitement of just making a great memory, not necessarily filling a tag. And so that right there, that memory is pretty high up there, and that just happened this past fall.
That's awesome. I appreciate what you're saying about getting somebody on a deer, their first bird, their whatever it is, their first something, no matter at what point in life that is. There's something very special about that. So I can definitely see how you got there.
It really is. You just you don't forget that kind of stuff. You're inexperienced with it. So that that first deer, that first turkey. I mean, it's definitely a memorable moment.
Very cool. All right.
And the thing is, everybody has. I've taken people out who have been kind of numb. I've had people who've had great visceral reactions to killing their first animal. What better way, in my mind, to do it than turkey hunting? If you want to hook somebody, think about it. It's action-packed. You don't sit in a tree. You can move around. They answer you back. You know when they're coming. They thunder right in front of you. And I remember, not this past spring, the spring before, maybe even the spring before that, I was filming, and I took this young lady out who's from Brazil. And she was adamant. She's like, "I want to shoot a turkey with my bow. I want to shoot a turkey with my bow." And I kind of was like, "Are you sure?" Because it's a very hard target, and they don't stand still.
Yep.
She goes, "Well, I'll just watch you first." Come to find out, we had this bird strike up. And I said, "Do you want to shoot this bird with my gun?" And she said, "Yes." And she did amazing. Bird came in, put on a show. I videoed the whole thing, strutting. The hen came in, and she shot it, and she just started weeping. And I was kind of scared. I said, "Oh, my God, did the gun..." he used my shotgun, Gretchen, and she's kind of a mean gun. And I was like, oh my God, did Gretchen kick too hard for you? Are you okay? Are you sad? Is everything right? And she was so excited. She was like, it's my first kill. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so excited. And I'm like, you know, man, that right there, I've killed hundreds of longbeards. That right there is better than any bird I could have killed in my life.
Yep.
And so watching her reaction, her respect of the game, and I mean, she's hooked for life. She goes out on her own now. She's absolutely crackhead addicted to turkey hunting. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. Oh, I had a similar experience this past season. A friend of mine who is he's an attorney, real estate attorney, has cerebral palsy and has never gone hunting. We've talked to him about it multiple times, but he finally said, yeah, I want to go do this. We got him in under the mentorship program through the state of New Hampshire so he could buy a license without actually taking hunter's safety so long as he's with another hunter. And we had a couple of close calls, but we finally found a bird all alone in this giant corner of a cornfield. And we knew it was a strutter. We knew there was a hen around. Had to be. There was all alone. You know, they get some of those big birds get real isolated, mid-season. And if you see that, if you can find an isolated spot, all you got to do is get that hen to come to you. And we lined them up. We got them set up on a tree. And later he told us, he said, well, I always wanted to hunt as a kid. My brothers did, but because of my cerebral palsy, they never took me. They just, wrote me off as incapable and almost like it was not desired. Well, that was not the case. And he shot his first turkey ever. Came in, I gave him my big 12 gauge with a 3.5-inch Magnum, and he leveled this thing as the hen crossed. The big Tom came up behind him, 10.5-inch beard, huge spurs, first bird. The guy's hooked for life. Yeah,
that's and awesome. Doing that for someone and being able to provide that for someone, and people are just like, oh, Jake's great, takes people out. I'm very selfish in the fact, I'm doing that. I'm taking them out, but I'm filling my needs with that. That's filling my empty bank in my soul for once further this sport and fill that memory void. And I will never ever relive my first turkey kill or my first big buck kill or my first deer kill ever again. But I relive it every single year through someone else.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
And that's the selfishness of it, to be honest with you.
I'm with you. That experience was as good. Actually, I take that back. It was better than probably my first kill.
Yeah. And to be honest, and it doesn't have to be somebody new. I've come full. I like to say I've come full circle, but it's a large circle where, for so many years, I want to kill a giant buck. I want to kill a big buck. And that's the only thing that's important to me. And I've kind of the last few years been like, I want to make memories. We're on this earth for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I want to make memories that last. And so I spent time hunting with Brett Joy this year, and he's killed a ton of turkeys. In the last 2 days of our hunt filming, we killed 2 great birds and made awesome memories. I took a gentleman out this year Paul Chapter who's killed plenty of turkeys, and we had an excellent morning. Fog was coming up. It was dewy out. This hen came off the perch right at our faces. She landed 10 feet from us. Tom followed suit, big strut. He hammered the big Tom. And it was just those are memories that I work nights, and sometimes it gets slow. I can sit there and just relive all those memories they happen right in front of me.
Right.
And that's soul food to me. That feeds my soul.
Yep, I'm completely with you. Well, let's go through a 10 rapid-fire question exercise here, guys, if you would entertain me.
Oh, boy.
All right. These are very simple stuff you'll know off the top of your head. Let's start with Jake. Jake, what's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Number one hunting tip of all time. Just because there's a tree stand there doesn't mean. Let me reword this. You can't kill it. Basically, you can't kill them if you're not in the woods.
That's basically a very profound but very important first step, right? If you don't get out there, you have no chance.
Right.
Justin, what's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Well, mine's kind of goes right along the lines of that. Whether you're cold or tired, just hunt a little bit longer, because I've had it happen once where I almost went inside. I was texting my cousin in my tree stand. I was like, let's get out of here, get some hot chocolate. And he's like, no, stop being a pussy. Let's do it for another hour or two at least. And, lo and behold, 30 minutes later, I had my first buck come in, and I was able to arrow him and put him down. So that was just stay in your stand a little bit longer.
Yeah, good advice. Don't go get the hot chocolate. I'm with you. Okay, we all have these things that I don't know if they're good luck charms. We just kind of like having it with us when we're out hunting. And it drives us crazy if we forget it at the truck, at the camp, whatever. What's that one thing for you? Let's start with you, Justin.
I don't really have a good luck charm, but I'm going to say food. I need to have food while I'm in my tree stand. I'm the type of person where...
That drives me nuts, man. That drives me nuts.
It does. I know it does. I can't... If I don't eat after like 2 hours, I start I get sweats and I'm getting uncomfortable, and I'm thinking when my next meal is going to be. I'm in survival mode. And it's so unneeded. It's so over the top. But I just, I'm kind of a fitness freak too. So I'm constantly burning calories all the time. And
he's into fitness pizza in his mouth.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I usually have little snacks with me, whether it's beef jerky or, every now and then a Pop-Tart. So.
God. Jay, let me just, on that note, I'm very diligent with my scent control. And I spend hundreds of hours chasing one single buck, and I'll be damned if the sweet, juicy smell of teriyaki beef jerky is going in the freaking woods with me.
Right.
That's why Jake's a better hunter than me.
No, it's simple. If you take the investment, you put the time in. I just, hey, if that's what makes you happy and keeps you in the stand, good luck. God bless. Whatever it takes to get you outside.
Gotcha. All right. So on that same note, Jake, what's that one thing that you can't hunt without?
My grandfather's last hunting license.
There you go.
I keep it folded up in my breast pocket.
That's a good one. I've not heard that before.
That's pretty cool.
Unfortunately, it's gone, and it used to be. So I have the ultrasound pictures of each of my kids and my grandfather's last hunting stamp, because New York, there used to be stamps, and I have them in a Ziploc bag in my breast pocket. And yes, they've all gone through several washes by accident, but I dry them out and they go with me.
Nice, very
That's
cool.
Pretty cool, man.
Jake, what's your biggest pet peeve in life?
Other than people who smack their lips when they chew?
Yeah.
My biggest pet peeve in life, you mean, and not just as it relates to hunting?
Yeah, just personally.
So my biggest pet peeve in life, let's go with disrespect.
Good one. Justin?
For people, in general, just lack of respect for fellow humans.
Gotcha. How about you, Justin?
I guess I'm going to go on the lines of that again. Probably people who don't give credit where it's due,
That's a good one, too. All right, very good. All right, let's see, moving on. Let's see. How old are you guys?
I am 31.
31?
I'm 37 with the body of a 55-year-old.
Dad bod, huh? Gotcha.
Well, I got a pacemaker and I'm bald.
Hot. So hot.
Hey, I just dropped 32 pounds.
Did you really?
Getting ready for Colorado elk, yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I have also just dropped 32 pounds on the nose. That's really funny.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I feel much better. I feel I have more energy. There's a couple of hunter friends that I know who are doing. I'm on a diet and on a training regimen. It's actually a high fat diet.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, no, are you doing keto?
Keto, yep.
Yeah.
Ketosis.
Keto, baby.
Joe Rogan, big advocate for ketosis and intermittent fasting. I do the same thing.
Yep.
It's so good.
It's crazy.
3 months now.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan's podcast is unreal.
March 19th is when I started, and dropped 32. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm at my goal weight now. I was 253, and now I'm about 220. I'm at my goal weight, and so I just want to maintain. But it's amazing how good you feel. And I work nights, and I only sleep 3-4 hours a day. And it's amazing what your body can do when it's using fat as a fuel source.
I agree.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I follow the same guidelines you guys do. I do the 5 and 2 split, so 5 days on, 2 days off. And I do usually a 16 and 8 window. I'm probably going to start to move it up to an 18 and 6. So I'll do 18 hours of, no eating and then 6 hours of eating. Usually I'll fast from 8 p.m. till noon the next day, and then I'll break fast and eat from 12 to 8 and then go right back to it.
Yep.
I'll do that 3 or 4 days a week, because that way it's intermittent fasting. Sometimes I'll throw in 18 or 20. It's hard working nights, but yeah, it's amazing how, and I'm glad we're talking about this a little bit, because I think as hunters, we all have kind of a, there's two different, there's actually, I'd say 3 genres of hunters. There are the old school, there's the new age, and then there's the tech hunters. But I think there's a stereotype of hunters as like fat Elmer Fudd who trash the woods. But as it comes out, we need to start as hunters taking better care of our body. And this is, I mean, we hear every year people passing away in the woods from a heart attack or unfortunate accidents. Fitness and hunting should go hand in hand. And I mean, it doesn't always have to, but you know, there are certain things out there like train to hunt. Yep. I know there's a gentleman, Will Bradley, from the Adventurous Gentleman or Outdoorsman, but there's I talk about it with there's a gentleman by the name of Mark Balistrieri who's big into it as well. Fitness and hunting are definitely linked. I mean, think about it. We're pursuing the most pure nutrients available, and we're exercising doing it. You know, very easy to go hand in hand.
Right, I completely agree. I don't get winded like I used to. I can hike up and down mountains, and it's like when you're carrying that extra 32 pounds, and you take that off. It's amazing how easy it is to move.
It is, you know.
I mean, you think of the biggest thing of it too. You don't break a sweat,
right?
You know, it's a lot harder. And you break that sweat. I mean, there goes your scent system you've been working towards all year.
Yeah,
and to be honest with you, this past turkey season, I felt I moved. I was the most limber, most active. I could move, and maybe it was just me. Maybe he was being nice to me, but I hunt alongside professional hockey players, and sometimes they struggled to keep up with me this spring. You know, I mean, when you move, you move.
Right.
Granted, I can't ice skate for worth a damn, but you know, it definitely. I think it makes you a better outdoorsman. Being in shape.
I agree, and I moved through the woods better than I ever had since I was in my 20s, where I took a lot of people on some turkey hunts, and they had to keep up with me, and I was not keeping up with them. And I was different. And I also, and maybe you guys can speak of this, I feel like there's a mental clarity that I wasn't having when I was eating lots of carbohydrates, and it's almost like I can think faster, I can see faster, more reactive. I don't know. It's just, maybe it's just subjective, but that's my experience.
And the thing is, and I have noticed that, I mean, I work nights, 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. in the emergency department. I'm a registered nurse. The clarity of my thought process, I have seen a difference in. Yeah. Less sluggish movement, less sluggish thinking, more a higher acuity thought process. I've definitely noticed.
All right, so it's not just me. That's good to know. What would you tell the 16-year-old you, knowing what you know today? Start with Jim.
Me? So, if I were to see so as a 16-year-old, I would tell myself to not be so cocky. You're not the best in the world. Shut up and listen to people.
Okay. All right, Justin?
Probably same thing, and work hard. You know, put the work in. Put the time in, put the work in, and don't give up. You know, I came from a pretty, well-off family, and there was at times growing up where I had, my parents worked hard for what they had, and they didn't have a whole lot growing up, and they wanted to give to me what they didn't have. So I had things just given to me at times, and I guess I didn't learn how to appreciate that until I got a little bit older. So I didn't have to work for things as hard. Pretty much when I turned 21, my parents had said, you need to go out in the world and do things on your own, and been living on my own since about that time. So I really learned what it meant to, work hard and make things work for yourself without having to get handouts. So it's, I guess, work hard.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. You're at a hunting convention somewhere in the world, and a stranger comes up to you and asks you what you do for a living. What do you tell them? Start with you, Justin.
Well, I'd tell them I'm a network engineer by trade, and I've been lucky enough to start a moderately successful nonprofit hunting group that helps people, get outdoors, helps them live a healthier lifestyle, helps them make memories with their family, and even helps, veterans with assimilating back into the outdoors.
Nice. How about you, Jake?
I tell them I'm a registered nurse in the emergency department, and father of 3 and husband of 1. Nice.
All right. Let's see, Jake, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I haven't eaten yet.
Okay. Very good.
Let's see. So, around 3 this morning, I had half an avocado and cauliflower rice with
nice
aminos. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so familiar with that stuff.
And then let's not lie, I cooked it in 3 strips of diced up bacon with the grease.
Yeah.
So.
Beautiful. All right, Justin, how about you?
I started eating at noon, broke fast. I actually have this right here. So I got a fitness mix of cranberries. I got almonds, sunflower seed, pumpkin seeds, and peanuts. So that's pretty much what I'll eat for most of the day. Probably around 4 o'clock, I'll throw a steak on the grill, and I'll eat that with an avocado.
Beautiful. Excellent. All right. Let's see. You get your own billboard on the side of a highway. It's a blank canvas. You can put anything you want on it. What would it say? Start with you, Justin.
We want you to join Boston Bowhunter.
All right. Very good. Jake?
Drive slower, sit longer, love harder.
Nice. If I say the word successful to you, who's the first person that pops into your head and why? Start with Jake.
My father.
Okay. Justin?
I'm going to say Joe Rogan. He's a big idol of mine. I see what he's done, everything from, Fear Factor to being a color commentator for the UFC to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, having 2 black belts, and to his new venture into hunting a couple of years ago. And he has a very successful podcast, and he's an all-around good dude.
Very nice.
Justin, don't forget Spin City. Okay, he was in that sitcom.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? He was like a tech guy. He repaired all the copy machines and computers and stuff.
That's pretty cool. Well, then I can even relate to him even more because I'm a tech guy.
There you go. Yeah. All right, Justin, what's a typical day in your life look like?
Well, right now it's picking up the mess in my living room that my daughter's making, followed by probably going to the gym after, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and after that, usually coming home and turn the TV on for a little bit, cooking some good food. I like to cook food. I like to take my time with it, and I try not to rush it. I don't mind prepping meals and doing stuff like that.
Yep.
And I usually go to bed pretty early. So I'm trying to break the mold of watching TV always before bed. And I've been reading a lot more as of lately. So a couple of books I'm reading right now is 48 Laws of Power. I have The First Frontier. And I'm also reading. It's a book on gut health. I've recently.
It's an Archie comic book.
Yeah, it's an Archie comic book.
You're reading the book of Kama Sutra.
There's a book called Stop the Clock, and it talks about anti-aging and gut health. So that's as a nutrition guy, that's something I'm always trying to work on and learn more about.
Gotcha. And how about you, Jake?
My life is hectic as hell. I mean, it's I've got 3 kids, all under the age of 12. I've got an 11-year-old girl, an 8-year-old girl, and a 3-year-old boy. My wife works. I work nights 3 days a week, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So, day in the life of me it's variable. But so today I got home at 8:30. I sleep till noon. Normally I would do work outside, shoot my bow. I like to spend most of my days outside. Exercise, clean the house, run the kids to dance practice, soccer practice, lacrosse practice, try and get my girls outside to shoot their bow as much as possible, try and get my son outside to dig in the dirt, do whatever I can to get him outside. I just, it's a busy life, and so a day in the life of me is never the same. Unless, my son's 3 years old now, and I'm praying he doesn't outgrow the kiltie pack, because anywhere from September 15th through whenever, he's on my back and we're running cameras, we're scouting, putting miles on.
Gotcha. All right, very
he loves
good.
It.
You should put me on your back.
Yeah, the problem is you can't keep your hands to yourself.
Right.
I can't guarantee anything, man.
All right, then, Jake, what's a typical deer hunting day in your life look like?
Typical deer hunting day is so I have to plan my deer hunts pretty well in advance. I spend a lot of my time running cameras and scouting, and I don't sit in a stand unless how do I say it? It's kind of strange because I said, you can't kill unless you're in the woods. I spend more days scouting than I do hunting, and I think that increases your percentage chance of success.
Yep.
If I don't have a specific deer that I'm after or know where he's at, or I haven't got a picture of him in a week or so, I'm not going to hunt him. I'm not going to spend my time in a stand. I'm going to put my feet on the ground, run cameras, look for fresh signs, see where he's at. But a typical day in the life for me would be, if I'm doing a morning hunt, I usually can hunt half days because of my family situation. In the morning, I'll get up early, have a couple cups of coffee, do my morning business, shower up, get set, get in the stand. I use climbers a lot and get up there well before daylight. In the afternoon, same business. Get ready, get in, get set. Because I run a camera quite often. I film all my hunts, so you have to give yourself that specific amount of time.
All right, so what's a typical deer hunting day in your life look like?
We usually get up around 4:30, depending on how far I'm driving from my house. I like to
smash crawlers.
Yeah, if Dunkin' Donuts is open. I like to get out of the house no later than 5 and be in the woods by 5:30. So I like to be up before the sun comes up in the tree, resting and waiting. And there I'll usually sit and hang out till 11 o'clock noon. Then I'll go and take a break, hang out at home for a little bit, do some chores around the house if I took the day completely off. And then usually around probably 2 to 3 o'clock, I'll go right back in and I'll sit till dark and hope that I can, have a deer come by and hope that I have the blessing from God to be able to shoot something.
All right. Very good. All right.
That being said, I will say there's a select few days between November 10th and November 16th or so. If I can, I'll do dark to dark every day.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I've tried that. I'm not very good at it.
There's a buck right here I did 16 days straight for.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
I missed him at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I killed him at 4:30 in the afternoon, the same stand on a doe.
That's what it takes sometimes, You just got to put in those long days.
No food.
It's not for everybody, and not everybody has to do it to be a good hunter. It's
right.
just, like I said before, those are the goals I set for myself, and I like to achieve them.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still at a point in my hunting career or whatever you want to call it where I'm just looking to harvest deer. I'm not picky on what I get. I like to just put meat in the freezer. I guess you can call me a bad hunter for it or an amateur, which I won't argue with you. I am, and I just, the meat's all I care about right now. But
I don't think I'm going to hold that against you at all.
And that's the thing, is that I want to touch on this just for a second, if you got time.
Absolutely.
Bad hunters and this and that, and you can't eat the horns, and you're a trophy hunter, and don't tell me what I can and can't shoot. That has all got to. It's all got to stop. I don't care if you shoot a spike horn. I don't care if you shoot a 4-pointer. If you got a grin on your face and a story to tell, and you're proud of that deer, I will buy you a beer, smack you on the back, and say, "That's awesome. I'm happy for you."
Yep.
But in the same aspect, because I choose not to shoot that deer, don't come to me and tell me I'm just a trophy hunter and I talk down about your deer. But in the same, if you shoot that 4-pointer in spike horn, don't tell me, well, I only shot it because my neighbor would have shot it if I had let it go. Be proud of your decision. Be proud of the life you took. You took something's life.
Right.
Stand by it.
You killed something. You took it off this earth so you can utilize the meat. Don't make an excuse for why you killed it. Kill it and enjoy it and remember the memory and utilize the meat. That's what it's about. And this goes back to us having respect for each other.
Right.
I don't care what somebody else decides to kill legally with their tag. That's your decision, but don't make an excuse to me. Be proud of it.
Yep. Completely agree. Well said. Guys, it's been great. I've really enjoyed talking to you guys. I think what you're doing is fantastic, and please keep it going. Always happy to contribute to whatever you have and get your stuff reissued on our page or whatever. If we have created more questions than answers, or if people who are listening to this have further questions, where can they reach you guys?
You can reach me online. You can reach me through the Boston Bowhunter page. You can go to our website, bostonbowhunterapparel.com, and reach us there. Or you can reach me through my email at bostonbowhunter617@gmail.com.
Very cool. How about you, Jim?
Yep. Same thing. We're in the middle. We're working our getting our apparel out there now. Starting to do some Boston Bowhunter apparel, make it kind of edgy. So that's a good place to reach us at. Same thing online, Facebook. I'm a hard guy to get in touch with. My wife can't even get in touch with me. She's been calling me for the last 30 minutes.
All right.
But you'll be seeing me this fall, hopefully on Deer Society and the Outdoor Sportsman's and Pursuit channel.
That's awesome.
I'll be doing some writing and some photography, videography this year. So, good place to catch me is at Boston Bowhunter Gardens on Facebook.
Very cool. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for all the insight to what's going on Boston Bowhunter, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. Thank you
much. Thanks for the time.
Well, thanks to Justin and Jake for entertaining us for the last hour or so and walking us through all the ins and outs of hunting the suburbs of Boston, where those lands were once the beginning of America, where the patriots and our founding forefathers fought for our freedom, and now it's turned into some pretty darn good hunting land. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week?
Yeah, I do, Jay. And it's going to take me back to when I first started getting knowledge of how to get a hold of hunting land and where to go to places to execute the landowners. And I'm going to go into my personal bag of tricks here and share something that I do if I'm in a bind and I need a place to hunt,
The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows. Located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
Most, I want to say 99% of farmers have this one particular restaurant either within a county or a couple cities over that they all like to congregate to have breakfast. It's where they can sit down and cut up and have fun with each other. And it seems like if you know a few farmers or at least one farmer that may catch that breakfast, that's somewhere you can capitalize on a piece of property to hunt on. You start making the effort to show up there for breakfast. Either it's a Saturday morning or Sunday morning if you're off work Tuesday or Wednesday or any day of the week that you're off work, or just a day that you don't have nothing going on and you say, hey, I need to go to this particular restaurant, sit down and have breakfast with these farmers, and walk in and introduce yourself and sit down with them. Say, hey, you guys care if I join you for breakfast? And they're going to say, no, not one bit. Who are you? What, they're going to want to know about you.
Right.
You made the effort to show up there and you made the attempt to sit down with them. That's going to spark their interest. It's not very often that somebody walks into their breakfast at their congregation meeting area and asks to sit down with them, because it's usually a clique of 8 to 15 guys that just catch up, maybe it's once or twice a week, or maybe it's even every day. So just go ahead and sit down and introduce yourself and tell them, hey, you're a bow hunter, and, and maybe take a couple pictures with you, or if you got them on your phone, get them out and show them to them. And let them know that you're kind of interested in finding a place to hunt on. And if you continue to show up to that breakfast meeting or a congregation area, they're gonna start to recognize you, and they're gonna learn who you are, and they're gonna build a personal trust at breakfast that's gonna lead into crop damage. They're gonna start talking about that, and that's your opportunity. When they start talking about deer tearing the heck out of their soybeans or their cornfields or their hay fields, you just say, hey, I could be the guy to go in there and kill off a few of them deer for you and maybe help out your yields. And, don't just run in there and say, hey, can I hunt your place? Not introduce yourself or get to know them, because it's not going to work. Get to know them a little bit, build a little trust with them. And maybe if you got a couple that you like and you know that they got a piece of property you could possibly hunt on, maybe buy their breakfast. Just use that morning meeting that is a group of friends or buddies or, fellow farmers. Go in there and sit down and try to capitalize on a piece of property with that route. That's my Chubby Time tip of the week, Jay.
Great tip, man. I was just about to ask you how many people show up and do that, and where you go as a farmer to hang out. Probably not too many.
No, it doesn't happen very often, but usually when it does, there's always somebody there that's looking for somebody to hunt a farm that they don't necessarily live on. That's something I'm picking up on, that if they don't live there, it's not that they don't care, but they're a little more lenient on what happens there.
Right.
So if they own a couple farms, and they got one down the road from their house, and the odds are you're going to get permission to hunt that farm because, for one, they got crop damage.
Right.
Number two, they visually can't see you pulling it out, and you're not, an aggravation to them.
Right.
And, farmers like to have people on their land. Not necessarily just for hunting, but for the aspect of trespassers, and they almost need a guy to give them some information, some feedback on what's going on their piece of land down the road.
Right. That's a great tip. Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here in the studios with me?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Instagram and Twitter @ChasingAntler, Facebook.com/Chubby Times Outdoors. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Likewise, you can shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com, and you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Twitter, which is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry, and YouTube, which is youtube.com/bigbuckregistry. On YouTube, you can listen to all of our podcasts in their entirety. As far as videos are concerned, it's a boring video, but the audio content is there, so you can actually listen to our podcast. You can also listen to all of our live shows that we've done on Thursday nights when we do them, and we've gone back and re-interviewed a lot of our previous guests we had on the show just to put a face to a voice, let's put it that way. You can always listen to our show on other places as well, not just YouTube. We're found on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and as an Amazon Alexa skill. Go to Alexa and say, Alexa, enable Big Buck Registry. And if you would like to submit a buck to our page for consideration and be featured on our page in front of 250,000 diehard deer hunting fans, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all of the instructions will be right there. I think that's pretty much everywhere we're at. I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
That's a whole lot of big buck, Jay.
Sure is. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.